Welcome. I see we have a couple people in the room. Appreciate it. We're gonna just wait a few minutes for our audience to fill in. So while you're waiting, if you would like to put in the chat what you are enjoying about Teach for LA. Introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and what you have been enjoying about Teach for LA. Gonna wait a couple more minutes. Anybody feels like they want to unmute and share what they've liked. Vanessa says she's enjoying all the information that she's been getting. Got a couple more people popping in. And wait another minute. Welcome. If you're able to, and you want to introduce yourself in the chat, you're here for the Teach for LA, Where Are They Now panel presentation. If you feel like sharing in the chat your name and one thing that you have been enjoying about Teach for LA. All right. Well, we are actually going to get started because we do have kind of a full agenda. I am Ruth Ellis. I am part of the team from the Center for Collaborative Education with our Ed Pathway team with Hondo and several other community colleges. And I'm so excited to be here to do this panel. And again, if you want to unmute and tell us what you have been enjoying about Teach for LA, we would love to hear that. I'll give another pause for that. Everybody feel like unmuting? Any of our panel want to tell us what you remember from Teach for LA? Asiane said also the different experiences everyone has shared about the journey. Wonderful comment, Asiane. You're going to hear about our panel members' journey today, so we're excited about that. So, all right, well, we're going to get started. As you know, we are part of Teach for LA. We've come together both from, gotta admit a couple people from the waiting room. Let me get them in. We worked together to put this together, and this is and I know Leah might correct me, but I think it's our 9th. It's the 9th one. We joined a few years ago. So this is our 9th year. This is the 9th year that the Teacher LA has been going on. So it's super exciting. So tell all your friends to come tomorrow and then also to come next year. So here we go. All right, so our agenda today is introductions. You just heard from me. Then we're going to do our panel presentations, and we hope to have some time for questions and answers. So feel free to start dropping those questions in the chat as we get along on it. But for now, you can listen to our panel members. So let's have Breanna introduce themselves and we'll go from there.
Yes, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Breanna Reyes. I started in the CPTP program in 2020, and I was in the program for about a year and a half, and it was honestly very foundational to who I am today as an educator. So I think a lot of what I did to that program in community college. From there, I transferred to UCLA to continue my studies in Spanish literature, and I'm currently in a dual program getting my master's and teaching preliminary like single subject teaching credential in Spanish and history. It's been a intense program, but I'm very grateful to be wrapping it up, and I will be graduating in June. So I look forward to that, and I will be starting a full-time position as a Spanish teacher starting in August.
Wow, that's new news to me. I don't know if I heard that
Awesome.
last time. Wow. Just a heads up, for those of you that don't know it, CPTP was our previous program. It was Community Partnerships for Teacher Pipeline. So a couple of our presenters today have experience with that. So, well, thank you, Breanna. Wonderful introduction. And our next panel member is Kayla Cannon. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Kayla, and tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kayla Cannon. Similar to Breanna, I was also in the CPTP program. I started back in 2021. I was a teacher track graduate 2022, so I moved through pretty quickly. I transferred to Cal State Long Beach, where I finished my bachelor's just last spring in my student teaching. So I'm on my preliminary credential right now. I am teaching fourth grade in Compton Unified, and I absolutely love it. I also started my master's program 3 weeks ago, and I'm pursuing a master's in curriculum and instruction. I have 2 little kiddos, so I'm also a mom that did school kind of late in life. And I look forward to getting to know more about you guys this session.
Thank you so much, Kayla. Newsflash, in case you already don't know this, for those of you that might be going in anything education adjacent or education profession, it does feel like you're going to school forever. So I did the same thing, and then I went back to school, then I went back to school. I don't think I finished until I was in my mid-40s. So totally feel your experience there. Our next panelist is Jonathan Ortega. Take it away, Jonathan.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Jonathan Ortega, and I'm a student at Cerritos College. Should be transferring this fall to Cal State Dominguez Hills. Chose to major in child development with a concentration in early learning and development. I joined the teacher track program. I'm gonna say it was last semester. Through that, I was actually part of a program called Teacher Track Mentoring Program, and that allowed me to work with a mentor in a kindergarten classroom. Because actually, I'll get to that in a little bit, but I was able to kind of see firsthand how my mentor conducted the classroom, how he managed the time, how he was able to use strategies to redirect student behavior and also reinforce positive guidance. And through that experience, I was able to use that. I was able to use that experience to currently work as a teacher assistant at a Boys and Girls Club of America. It's going good so far. It allows me to get firsthand experience in the classroom. And should be transferred, like I said, once again to Dominguez Hills, hopefully this fall, to obtain my bachelor's in, like I said, child development, concentration in early learning and development, to at some point get my PK3 credential, to maybe one day become a lead educator in a classroom.
And we're so lucky that Jonathan was available at the last minute because we really wanted to get some representation from the male in the classroom perspective. And I don't know if any of you went to Agustin Cervantes' presentation yesterday about male teachers, but it was incredible. So thank you, Jonathan, for your lived experience with that. Jonathan was part of a collaboration at, he said, Teacher Track, which is unique to Cerritos College in their name. It's just how they do their education program. And so we worked with Jonathan and Cerritos College with the mentoring component. So moving on, last but certainly not least, we have Uni. Go ahead, Uni, tell us all about it.
Well, hello everyone, welcome. My name is Yunuen, but I go by Uni. I also started off in CPTP back in El Camino College. I had a great mentor and I was able to transfer to UCLA where I earned my Bachelor's of Arts in Education and Social Transformation. I'm currently currently finishing up my first year in my master's program. I'm not pursuing teaching. Instead, I decided to pursue educational counseling, so working more so as an advisor or counselor for students in 2-year colleges or 4-year colleges. That's sort of my goal at the moment. So I currently work at El Camino College and Los Angeles Trade Tech, and I should be expecting to work at Pasadena City College as well, kind of jumping around, getting different experiences from all these different community colleges. But welcome, feel free to answer or ask any questions. We'll be more than happy to answer.
So before we move on, what I would like to see, if you're able, I know everybody's got multitasking happening, and for some reason I can't even do it on mine. It might be because I got so many windows open. If you can share a little reaction emoji about what you think of these 4 amazing panelists, please do that now and just let's show them some love and share an emoji. Thank you, Dr. Smith. I see applause. Anybody else want to share a little emoji? Because we got some confetti. We got a muscle in the chat. Keep going. Come on, let's try to get a few more. Wonderful. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Joanna. We got a high five from Mila. We got a heart from Leah. That is so great. And that just emphasizes how much progress you all have made. And for you all in the room right now, maybe you'll be up here next year. Maybe we'll have 10 of you up here because it'll be the 10th anniversary, right? So thank you so much. We're going to move on and we're going to start with the series of questions. So I thank you, Guadalupe, for dropping an emoji in a chat, smiley with the hearts. That's one of my favorites. So you already told us a little bit about yourselves. And as you heard, we have the representation is kind of across the board. We have 2 sort of in teaching, and then we have another person sort of doing this counseling, which I use the term education adjacent, which I don't mean to diminish it at all. But what I mean when I say education adjacent is it's as important, but it's adjacent to what we think of when we think of a school setting. And a school setting is, the first thing that pops into our minds is the teacher. Maybe the principal, because maybe some of us spent a little more time than we should have in the principal's office, but maybe we think of the nurse, but education adjacent only means that it could be a school psychologist, it could be a speech therapist, it could be I don't know, case manager for students with disabilities. So there are many, many avenues for us to think about and talk about. So when we ask these questions, our panel is going to be talking from that perspective. So the first question is to all of you, and you can just unmute and take turns. Why do you want to teach or work in a school setting or something in that adjacent arena? Or why did you decide to pursue wanting to teach? So anybody who wants to go first? Why do
I'll go.
All right, go ahead, Kayla.
Okay. Because it grew over time. So I feel like when I was younger and in high school, we were given these electives. You had the option to be like a teacher's assistant, and you could only do it 2 or 3 times. And I fulfilled all 3 terms of it, and I really, really enjoyed working alongside the teacher. Then I ended up having my daughter really young, and teaching was out of my head for a while because I didn't go to school. I finished high school and I didn't go to college. I had to go to work. So it was off my mind for quite some time until my daughter was in 3rd grade. And I did some volunteer work in the 3rd grade classroom, and I was doing just like some small group reading and helping out. And the teacher said, why don't you teach? And I was like, that's a good question, because I had thought about it in high school, but then, things happen, life happens, and things change for a little bit. But I feel like that was always my passion. To me, teaching is a lot about like community service. I'm doing something for my community that's important for me. And I really enjoy taking care of the kids. And it's not always about teaching them academics, but teaching them the good social skills and how to interact with one another. And I love it. I really, really, really have loved my first year.
Thank you so much, Kayla. It's hard to believe you're in your first year with how articulate you're speaking about this. Thank you. Anybody else want to take that question? Why did you want to teach or work in some kind of school or education adjacent setting?
I can take that question.
Great.
Okay, so for me, honestly, teaching was not something that I had initially anticipated that I was going to end up pursuing in the long term, because my original aspiration was a film major, that I wanted to become a film director, a film writer, film screenwriter. That was my aspiration since like middle school. It didn't really happen while I was in college. However, as I started taking the classes during college, I just wasn't really I was starting to lose interest in film. And when I went to the orientation program at Dominguez Hills, I just wasn't sold on the program. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to pursue this and then end up regretting it later. Let me just drop out of it, and then we'll see what happens from there. So I came back to Cerritos College, and then I thought, okay, well, I'm undecided right now. What can let me just look at my general eds to see if something sticks out to me. And I remember I took a child development course for one of my general eds, and the instructor taught it in such a way that made me want to know more. I was really, it was a general ed, but I was really invested in the material. So I'm like, you know what? Just for the moment, I'll just major in that, and then we could just go from there. And as I took more classes in that major, I honestly started to really enjoy the material, and then branching out to the point where I was able to actually, work in the classroom, with my mentor, where at first it was just observing, kind of just seeing how he facilitates the instruction in the class. And then over time, he allowed me to also work in small groups. So where that could be facilitating, working on writing, or potentially, or even reading to self and stuff like that. It's honestly it's one of those careers that where you're always kind of growing and you're always adapting. And I feel like it really resonated with how I something that I want to do in terms of my personal mission, to always be willing to grow, always be willing to adapt, always be open to new perspectives. And I feel like teaching just aligns with that point of view. So that's why I want to become a teacher.
Wonderful. Great. I love that growth mindset for sure. That's something that is really serves you well in the work that we do, and also that creativity. You'll be making movies with your students for sure. Lots of ways to do that now with tech in the classroom. I'm going to open it up if anybody. We have plenty of time. So Breanna, it looks like you're ready to go. Go ahead.
For me, teaching has been something that I've known I wanted to do since I was in 2nd grade. I had a very impactful teacher, and looking back at it now, I noticed that this teacher was one that showed thick solidarity in the classroom, and she made me feel comfortable coming into class every day. And this was when I was in 2nd grade. And since then, I've known that I wanted to continue show up for students in the same way that she did. And so for me, teaching is not just being this authoritative figure of I teach and you learn, but more of a way to build community and to give students a safe place where they can come in and learn and make mistakes and have fun as well. I think that's one of the epitomes of my teaching pedagogy, is allowing students to have fun in the classroom, because those are the classrooms where I knew I was learning the most, and that's what I want to continue doing for my students, and allowing that space for them to feel comfortable with themselves, their identities, their cultural backgrounds, and still learn at the same time. But all of those are reasons why I want to continue teaching.
Wonderful. And Uni, would you like to share your perspective
Yeah.
on that?
Sure. So for me, when I started off community college, I originally was a child development major, but later along the line, I decided to pursue political science. But it wasn't until one of my professors, Miss Ariana, she was able to connect me with CPTP, and I had a mentor who taught, I believe, in elementary. And even though at that moment I wasn't too sure about teaching, she instead recommending, like, there's so many other opportunities within education. Um, she was one of the people that convinced me. I'm like, okay, well, when it's time to transfer, if I don't want to do political science, maybe just sticking to education would be best. That's what I decided to do. And so, as a transfer student, I was able to work in different departments at UCLA, mostly focusing with like first generation students from LAUSD or from low income school or underfunded school districts. And so seeing how I was kind of able to help the development of students pursue college, that was kind of my motivation of like, okay, I think I can see myself doing this long term. But I really wanted to go back to community college since that's where I started. And so that was why I decided to pursue a master's degree in educational counseling, knowing that, again, I just really want to connect with community college students because I originally faced that stigma from attending community college where it wasn't seen as like the best option to go to right away, especially coming straight from high school. And so I just wanted to reconnect with students the most at the community college level.
Thank you so much. So you can see the diversity in these stories, all leading to just amazing career choices and plans for a career. And like all of these options are open to any of you that are out there thinking about what to do. I'm going to skip the next question because I think you kind of spoke a little bit about something you unexpected or you encountered as you started pursuing this. We might revisit that in a minute. I really want to get to the next question and make sure we open this to everybody who wants to talk about it. How did having a mentor impact your journey in this work that you've done, becoming a teacher, your work exploration, you're transferring to school, deciding on where you want to end up? How did a mentor impact that?
I'll go again.
Okay.
Okay. We can go as many times, right? Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. This is for
Okay.
you. This is all you guys. So go
All
ahead.
right. Okay, so I had a mentor my full time through the teacher track program at Cerritos College in CPTP. Her name's Maria Isabel Gonzalez. So if you guys have heard her, you probably know she's amazing. But a mentor was something that was so unfamiliar, prior to being at the community college and going through that program. I had never had like a mentor before. But it was super beneficial for a multitude of reasons. And the main reason was just kind of having that support because like in my family, I was the first to go to college. So a lot of people weren't really familiar. My sister, she, in college, my mom. So there's some conversations, that you want to have with people that have knowledge. And that was my mentor. She's taught for quite a many years. She was a teacher track graduate herself. So everything that I was experiencing, at Cerritos College, whether it be classes that I was struggling in or thinking about how I'm transferring or what I need to do next, or am I forgetting anything? She was always there and she had all those answers because she had been through it herself. So she was just a huge source of support. And I shouldn't even say is. Just recently, we were able to do an event together. I still talk to her very often. I can always reach out to her, and she became a really good friend. And I think the people who are kind of paying it back to teacher track, which I hope to do myself as well, are people who are really involved and people who are really committed, not only to education, but to helping others. And if you don't have a mentor or if you're interested, I highly encourage you to reach out and figure out how to have one and become a part of that program because it can be a huge source of support for you and really be an extra friend along the way.
Wonderful. I see that you really struck a um a point about that with regard to the mentors. I see a hand raised. Sarah, if you could try to put yours in the chat, but just give me a second. It says mentors make the difference, and I think that's true. Sarah, is it a question or you wanted to mention something?
It was just to elaborate with what you guys are talking about. Without a mentor, we don't make it anywhere, to be honest with you, because as a non-traditional student as well, not and being the first gen, not knowing where to go, who to talk to. I know my professor from political science, Connie Asaiz, has been a big pivot point for me to getting all the information. Also, Deborah from CalWork, she helps us so much and getting us guided when we have questions, where to go. I had no clue where to even start. I didn't even know what an agetsi was. So I've walked the imposter syndrome since I've been in college, and I've trying to shake it off of me. But now that I have these people in my life, I could see a big change. I could see a big pivot, and I could see that fire in me growing and growing and getting closer to my goals. I do want to become a teacher. That's my goal. But I still have a little bit of ways to go.
Thank you for sharing, Sarah. I appreciate that. And I saw a couple of people said, and Dr. Smith is saying, yes, imposter syndrome is real, and you got a heart from Dr. Smith. So yeah, it's very important. Anybody else on our panel want to comment on that? I'm sure there are many people that want to hear these stories about your mentors, which I gotta see Jonathan has unmuted. Go for it,
Yes,
Jonathan.
I can go next. Okay. All right. So in terms of having a mentor, it's honestly, it's kind of like something that I didn't really like know what to expect. Cause like, just like Kayla, I have never had a mentor before, like in this regard. So, and I was one of the first members of my family to go to pursue teaching. So I wasn't really able to like lean on anyone in regards to that. So I was like, oh man, am I really going to go through this journey on my own? But then once I was offered the opportunity of being paired up with a mentor, I wasn't really sure what to expect. But honestly, I'm really glad I did it because just like usually I tend to like, fear the unknown of like, oh, what's to come, what's to be expected. So I was a little nervous about it, but honestly, it's like just having that support structure is just like really like it really like gives you like a positive like influence of it's relatable in the sense that like no one like we kind of see them as like having like all the answers of knowing like everything that like knowing how to conduct the classroom, knowing what to do whenever problems arise. But it's like we have to understand that they started out kind of just like us. They were in our shoes at some point, so they can relate to our struggles, and I feel like that's something that I really appreciated. It's definitely also like something that personally that I did when I was with my mentor. Whenever I saw him in the classroom, I would always write down notes or little like observations of things that I saw, things that the students did, and I would always communicate with him in that. So I feel like communicating with my mentor was something that I definitely helped me, like kind of be reflective on what I was writing down, helped me definitely be a little more self-reflective on even my perspective of what teaching is. Because initially I just thought, okay, teaching is just they just come in, they learn their letters, they learn their numbers, and then they go home. But it's not that. It's also like that emotional like point of view that they also have to take into consideration. And I feel like my mentor definitely opened up my eyes in that regard as well. So for sure.
I kind of heard that your mentors aren't only mentors to you, but they're mentors to the students in the classroom at no matter what age. So thank you for highlighting that. Breanna or Uni?
Yeah, I could go. I think something that has stuck with me since being in the program in community college was my mentor. Her name's Annette Wilderholt. She definitely helped with like the whole teaching side, like what I should do, what I can do. But something that really stuck with me was all the like mental health resources that she also offered, because I think as teachers we tend to take on a lot more than I think we should. and or we give in like 110%, which is amazing, but there is like that teacher burnout sometimes. And so she gave me a lot of resources that would help with like the work-life balance and making sure to take care of myself, because if I'm not well, then I'm not going to be teaching well. I think that was such like wise advice, and I hear her voice in the back of my head still, like 3 years later, like learning when to, end work for the day. We'll save this for tomorrow. Work will get done. Don't take on too much, because it is important to maintain ourselves healthy and like our just have that like self-care and self-love as well, because that ends up being like what we project to our students. How we feel ends up being, yeah, what we project to them. And so that's something very, very important. I think that's something that I think about before everything else. But that has definitely helped me sustain myself throughout this year, like student teaching and then going to master's classes. It's just been a lot. So just knowing when to go and when to stop has definitely been something that I treasure a lot about her.
Wonderful. Thank you, Breanna. It's funny you said that because it's been over 40 years since I had my first mentor, and I still remember some of her words. So they do last, they do stick with you. I see Mia, you unmuted. Are you thinking you have a brief comment? Or just random that you unmuted?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I didn't notice.
No problem. No problem. And of course, again, last but not least, Uni. Go ahead.
So for me, my mentor was Doña Horton. However, I do want to mention my professor, Yadir Arellano, just because even though I wasn't in the classroom with her anymore since I was no longer pursuing child development, she still kept in contact with me consistently from the beginning of community college, from up until I transferred to even now in my master's program. So it really showed how much dedication and passion she has for her students. But she was also, again, like a mentor for me, providing, like answers to questions I might have about like whether or not I wanted to transfer. With CPTP specifically, my mentor, Doña Horton. So even though I wasn't as interested in teaching, she was 100% open to that. We instead spent our time together, discussing books. We would have assigned reading. So like basically a book club, like me and her. But she also let me know about like different opportunities that were available to her because of her master's degree. And she was kind of like that person to kind of encourage me to pursue a master's degree, because for her, she was not only a teacher in the classroom, but she was also teaching at LMU, I believe. And so there was multiple experiences that we also had where I felt like I was able to come to her comfortably about like circumstances or experiences I've had in the classroom. For example, I was an avid tutor when I first started in community college, and there was a teacher that kind of again pushed that stigma against like community college. She asked me not to talk about like my background because she didn't want me to influence the avid students to go to community college. And I felt like that was really hurtful, not only for the students, but also again, because that's where I come from. Community college is kind of like an open arms, accepts everyone and anyone. And so having her say that out loud kind of was hurtful. But because of my mentor, she kind of encouraged me, like, this is like the reality sometimes that we have to deal with. But because of like your presence of being in the classroom, you're still able to openly share and talk about different resources and different pathways that students are able to um, pursue. And so with that, it was really impactful, especially after I transferred. I kind of saw the difference between having someone to talk to in community college versus at a four-year university. It did get kind of lonely sometimes not having someone else in that um, field, or just someone that already has their bachelor or a master's degree. So it ultimately was really beneficial to have that person to talk to.
Wow. Great. You actually, Uni, kind of wrapped up sort of the direction that we're going to be going next around the importance of that community college experience. And so I really appreciate that you highlighted the advocacy that you tried to impart around that experience, even though somebody maybe said something that was not sort of, maybe the most positive or the most asset-based, right, mindset. So we're going to move on, and if we could mix it up and have a new voice start us off, just because it kind of keeps everybody going. As you know, with your students, you have to kind of mix it up a little bit. So talking about community college, how do you think your community college experience, whether it was teacher exploration or anything else that you had, how did that community college experience influence, or how does it currently influence what you're doing now? So who would like to start?
Okay,
Any,
I can start.
Uni? Yeah,
Uh,
that's great. Thank you, Uni.
Yeah, so for me, my experience was a little different. I was able to start community college in high school. I was a dual enrollment student. However, that kind of took that took a little bit out of me. Excuse me. So starting from high school, I wasn't the best student. I wasn't necessarily like passing on my classes. It wasn't until I joined like an AP US history class that the teacher I had, she kind of always pushed me to challenge myself to start different things. So that's when I agreed to enroll in community college. So we had like a bus pick us up from high school and drop us off to El Camino College. And that's where I started taking the child development classes. And then later on, once I graduated in 2020, I decided to pursue community college full time. And again, I kind of already mentioned that stigma. I had kind of teachers and counselors questioning why I was deciding to go community college route because they believed in that statistic of like once you start, you're never going to get out of community college. It's really hard to continue or pursue to get an associate's degree. But because of my professors and um, that experience of being in community college as a high school student was really beneficial, where I was able to join two different programs, one of them being the first year experience program, the other the honors transfer program. So that kind of helped me step out of my comfort zone to challenge myself to take sort of like honors classes and then to eventually work as a student representative at community college, where I kind of got to learn more about the ins and outs of what is admissions and records like, what is financial aid, what are the policies and practices behind attending a community college. That I felt like I really fell in love with the experience, and I don't regret it at all of like having my first experience being community at the community college level. That again, that's where I'm currently working at as a student success coach in EOPS. I see a lot of students with similar journeys of being first generation, coming from backgrounds where they might be unfamiliar with the process or a non-traditional background, since we do serve CalWorks and care students and our foster youth who are either like single head of household or have that background with them. And this is their first experience ever stepping into college. And so I feel like I've been very privileged to hear some of their stories and kind of guide them through the enrollment process and what it's like to be um, a first generation student. And so I feel like that experience again was really beneficial to me. I love community college. I really do want to come back and be a part of that system full time after I graduate. Um, but yeah, I think that that's how it's influenced me currently because of how real that experience was of how much diversity was present at the community college.
Really appreciate that sharing of all the authentic experiences that you had at the community college. Thank you so much. Who else wants to go? Rolando, did you want to ask or mention something briefly? We have Breanna and Jonathan queued up, so I don't want you to feel like we don't want to hear from you, Rolando. So go ahead and share what you wanted to say.
Well, okay, so I've been an engineer for 15 years, and I kind of found a love for education during COVID, volunteering at my daughter's school. I really kind of found like a new calling. But one thing that upon looking into community college or university, um, I'm attending Real Hondo, which is a community college, but when I was visiting some of the campuses like UC's, the Cal State LA, I noticed that there's it kind of seemed like a very different discrepancy versus as far as like at a UCLA type of situation. There's a lot of communication among students and staff and administration, but at community colleges, I've noticed that there's a lot of fractures. And as someone who's 48 years old, going back into the education, going back into education, in this whole presentation, I've been enlightened by a lot of different perceptions and different experiences. But I'm kind of wondering how have the presenters dealt with that fracture in communication, if you've dealt with that, and also with as far as like.
Oh, did we lose you? Rolando, we'll come back to that question towards the conclusion of our session. I'll make a note of that around how you navigate sort of some of the complex systems at the college campuses. And I think what Uni highlighted is kind of that learning curve. And I see Breanna, maybe you want to share, the learning curve and getting to know the colleges and how that community college experience influenced your journey.
Yes, thank you. I think similar to uni, I come from a community, or at least like the high school that I was coming from, where there was a stigma around community college, a very like negative view on it. And so when I first entered, it did scare me, like similar to what uni just said. People who go to community college don't get out, or there was just a lot of this like negative connotation to going. And so part of me was scared to embark on this journey. And I also started prime COVID time. So my 2 years at Hondo were fully online. I didn't step into a classroom at any point. Like I didn't have any classes in person. And so a part of that made it a little bit hard for me to find a community at Hondo. But thanks to the CPTP program, I was able to mingle and meet other students who were interested in becoming teachers. And so I felt a sense of community there, even if it was through like virtual like meetings and things like that. So that's something that really helped me continue pursuing this educational like journey and getting to where I am today, as well as the honors program. I think Uni also talked about that. I knew that I wanted to transfer within 2 years. And so I had heard that the honors program allowed they were just counselors specific to students in that program, and I knew that getting a hold of counselors sometimes could be difficult. So I tried looking for different resources that would help me get to closer to my end goal. And so I'm very thankful for both programs, which allowed community, but also resources for me to continue my education and finish within the time frame that I had set for myself.
Thank you so much. I think that's a common thread that we're seeing with most of our panel. We have Kayla said she did it online, and Jonathan, go ahead and share. And then Kayla, we'll get to you last but not least. But Jonathan also said he was fully online. So Jonathan, go ahead and tell us about what your community college and experience and how it influenced what you're doing now.
So in terms of like my experience with community college, like I said, first 2 years were fully online. So it was also hard for me to like connect with like a community wise. Like it was mostly just like, for me, it just felt very generic, just, attending class and then just leaving. I wasn't really doing any of like the self-reflective work on myself, which is something that I'm like, now that I got into teaching, I've been like more of an advocate for. So it's definitely, but I feel like honestly at the community college level, it's a little like, it's like the baby steps. It's like you're starting out to like, kind of discover who you are as a person and being a little more like open to new perspectives, as I mentioned before. And I feel like honestly, like the connections that you make at the community college, in my experience, have been a little more like simplistic, mostly because it's because it is a smaller community at a community college. So I feel like I'm able to connect with people with more on a personal levels. Like personally, I'm not like big in term. I'm not like how do you say it? I'm not I don't do well in terms of like really big crowds. I prefer like smaller communities. But and then over time, you know, branching out to to listening to other perspectives, which over time can grow a community, which I do believe is something that is really prevalent and really important when it comes to teaching, is, you know, expanding your influence and also expanding your community. Yep. So
Thank you, Jonathan. I really love that piece of advice around starting small and finding that small group to connect to, because maybe that's a start that starts to create a chain reaction around feeling more connected to the community college community. Maybe that's something, Rolando, that might connect to something that, you know, you're hearing now about starting small and taking those baby steps. Kayla, thank you for waiting. Go ahead and share.
No problem. I am patient, Ruth.
I know, for sure.
I will go and say, this kind of circles back to, I think his name was Rolando. Bear with me here. This might answer your question a little bit soon. I will say, Uni and Breanna, I come from a family where college wasn't really talked about. Now, I think that at the community college level, I think that was the most pride that I carry. I often wear my Cerritos college sweatshirt. You know, to me, over the course of the 4 years, right? So I did my associates at Cerritos College, then go on to Cal State Long Beach to finish my bachelor's. And I often brought up to my mentor and other people within the teacher track program how I didn't feel as supported at Cal State Long Beach, or the support that I had was still coming back from the people at Cerritos. So I guess I might have a different point of view or perspective there, or just a different experience, right? And I think it goes along with how much you invest in it too, because although I did mention in the chat that I did complete my associates fully online through Cerritos College, dear, I formed so many relationships in those 2 years virtually. Having your camera on and having those conversations, and you really start to form relationships. And I think relationships are important. And I think Cerritos College, my community college time, is something that I'll always hold dear to my heart. I do feel like I was encouraged and pushed and motivated in just the right amount of dose to get me where I am now. I didn't even know I was going to go for my master's, and there's so many people I was inspired by at that college that I got to know well. Sue Parsons, even Ruth, yourself, all of you were there on multiple calls during those years, answering questions when you didn't have to, staying late after the Zooms. And Ruth, thank you. And I really do feel like community college, that stigma needs to dissolve, because when I got to a large scale campus like Cal State Long Beach, I didn't connect as well with many of the administrators there. I couldn't even probably tell you one of their names, to be honest. And that was my experience.
Thank you so much, Kayla. Yeah, I've been so blessed to get to know the community colleges in a way that I don't think I ever would have had that experience in any other work that I've done. And as a transplant to California from the Northeast, and especially during the time when I was there, growing up, community colleges were very different. And when I came to California and heard about all the opportunities that lie within community college and the economy around it, really was like, wow, this is just like utopia. Like I couldn't believe it. So I'm really glad to hear that. I know there's always a learning curve and always bends in the road and all of that. And I think hearing all four of those stories reminds me of, what we think about what you're doing in that persistence and in that, sort of personal responsibility that you take to the work of being a student and also engaging in the community. So we're going to move on, shift a little bit right now, and start to talk about you as professionals. Jonathan, I heard you are working, so you are a professional. Uni, you are working, you are a professional. We have our two, I think, Breanna, you're getting your master's. Kayla, you're in the classroom as well, getting your master's. So think about this in the context of where you are right now in your professional work. what are some highlights about what you're doing, and what else did any of this experience inform? Anything that you learned from your mentors, but what are some highlights? So floor is open. Who wants to go first? I think I see Jonathan's unmuted. I don't know if that's random or you're ready to go.
I can go. I can go.
Okay,
It's fine.
great.
Right. So some of the highlights of definitely what I'm doing right now is definitely building off of their learning is of the students' learning, because that's something that's I feel like is should be really prevalent in the classroom. I definitely try to like sway questions into what they're invested in. So like if a student is very invested in like building, I try to ask them questions regarding like what like oh well what is it that they're building, or how do they come up with that idea, or if they like built a structure in a certain way that I haven't seen before. It's like, well, how did you come up with this, or how did you think of that for, or oh, what can we use this platform for? Definitely also kind of getting them to branch out into other and so thinking about the materials in a different way. I feel like it's something that I think reinforces critical thinking as well as creative thinking, which I feel like could be very beneficial when it comes to in the long term of their educational journey. I think also another highlight is building like meaningful relationships, because although I kind of was able to do this with my mentor, I only worked with the groups like just very like for just like brief periods. Here it's like I'm at the forefront of like that's like the main part of of my job is working with the students to just to help the teachers care for them and also teach them. And I think building those like meaningful relationships also helps me kind of like relate to, okay, so what is it that so what are like some of the positives that I am doing? What are things that I should be a little more reflective on and be open to changing and adapting? Because I feel like with each student, I try to individualize it. It can be challenging, but it's something that I'm always definitely open to.
Oh, love it. All right, who wants to go next? Breanna.
Could go next. Yeah, so I'm currently in the STEP program, which is the Stanford Teacher Education Program. I am I fully teach one class, and then I co-teach another class every morning, Monday through Friday. And then after that, I come back to Stanford and I do my master's classes here. So it's a full day, very long day, very tiring day, but also a very rewarding position to have. This week currently is Teacher Appreciation Week, which I think everyone knows. So yay, woo, go teachers. And I teach a Spanish 3 for Native Speakers class, and these students are 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, and they're a very shy group of students, but I think a highlight that I've seen, especially this week, is seeing how throughout the year they're not very verbal with like compliments or thanking, but I've received a lot of thank you notes and they're very shy with it. They're like, Miss Bree, like I wrote you this note, and they express their gratitude through that. I'm like, oh, okay, like I am doing a good job. It's validating for me to see that they are appreciative of what they're doing. And like a lot of their notes have been like, oh, thank you for making Spanish fun, or thank you for making it a safe and inclusive space. Which has been very rewarding for me to see. Another highlight as well, I think, would be the cohort of like student or like teachers that I work with at Stanford. I think just being able to have other maestras that are currently going through like the same educational program with me has been really beneficial, because if I have questions, I can ask them or lean on people. I have a lot of support people or like other like people in my program that are going through the same thing. So I've been able to build like a very close-knit community with the coworkers I have, but also like teachers in my program. Yeah.
That's a great little tag there around building those relationships with the teachers, right? That's what I like to call networking, right? Network is not only a noun, but it's a verb. And so verb it. Verb that word network. People networking. Kayla, sounds like you're ready to go. Go ahead.
I'm ready. One of the standout highlights, honestly, is going to be state testing right now. First year teacher, first time state testing. So cheers. It's fun. It's stressful, but I'm curious to see the results. I feel like that'll be my true testimony. It's been pressure. It's been stress because as a first year teacher, I want to see, you know, what was I able to do? Like, where were they at last year? What has actually, you know, that's my data right there. So I'm looking forward to that. But another highlight, you know, like I mentioned, I just started my master's program. So I'm highlighting that because I'm excited to grow in the profession. I've actually considered a reading specialist position as well, because I have noticed a struggle, it seems, in reading. Not everybody on grade level as they come in. But one last thing is reflection. And I like reflection. I delved deep into it. I feel like at Cal State Long Beach in the teaching courses, it was often like reflect on this, and I was like, so much reflection. But now I talk about it all the time in my induction program and how important it is to reflect on what have I done this year, what worked, what didn't work, what do I want to keep doing next year, how am I going to expand on that, and really just back to the growth mindset. So reflection's kind of my new favorite thing. And I feel like I do it, you know, daily, all throughout the day, just thinking like, how did that go? Did it work? Was it effective? What could have made it more effective? And asking yourself those questions. And those are my big highlights right now.
Thanks so much, Kayla. I hope that as you wait for those scores, you take them with a grain of salt. And I noticed that you put in the chat about, where was it? You said the emotional connection I have with my kids. I am not ready for school to end. You're not ready for the school year to end. To me, you've done it. You've made that emotional connection. That's the biggest standardized test of all, right? Like you
Yeah.
said it yourself, those relationships, those connections, because that's what a student remembers. The student's not going to remember that you taught him to bubble in a
Right.
letter, right? They're going to remember
Yeah.
how you put your hand on their back and said it's going to be okay. And if they were nervous, that's what they're going to remember, right? So
Thank you.
just want to mention that. I know I love your enthusiasm. So I needed you the last few years of my teaching when testing came around. But I'm going to stop sharing for a minute because I want this to be a little more personal. And this next question is kind of like a lightning round around what advice will you give, do you want to give to the audience? Just on where people are going and exploring education or teaching or any of that. What advice?
I can go.
All right.
So I think definitely being open to different perspectives, because you will probably encounter a lot of teachers in your educational journey, and every teacher does things differently. Like I've been exposed to so many different perspectives, even with the grade levels. Like you also see how a certain teacher will facilitate instruction very differently. Even their beliefs on their educational system is that something that you'll definitely want to reach out for. And it will sometimes influence how you will construct your own like teaching style. Not every teacher has. You're not going to find a teacher, two teachers that have the same teaching style. Everybody does things differently, and it's definitely being open to that perspective and being reflective on sometimes even adapting the teaching style, even with like if as you teach it for years to come. That definitely with new information, I think is something that we should all be open to. I think also being honest as well, because I want to be honest about like expectations, but also like the just in general, like the results or like any questions or concerns. I think it's definitely something that networking is something that you will definitely assist you. And, like, you're not alone in this journey, for sure.
Who wants to go next?
I can go. I think piggybacking off of what Jonathan said, like no teacher has the same teaching style. And that's something that I've gotten or feel privileged to experience up until this point, because I've gotten to absorb knowledge from so many different teachers, which has been amazing. Just keeping that like open mind, open heart kind of view when you encounter like new teachers or like new students, just having this like holistic approach to things has been something that I've found very beneficial, and a little piece of advice that I would want to share, as well as being human. I think the one thing that I've learned the most is just showing up for students first as a person, just as a human, and then a teacher. Students are more inclined to open up and listen, at least at the level that I'm teaching, which is like high schoolers. They can see like your bluff, or that's what I've seen as well. They can tell when you're like trying to put on this persona. So as long as you're like a human at the very beginning, I think that is something that I have seen has been very beneficial, treating them as humans too, and just building those relationships. And first, and then second comes teaching, because at the end of the day, we just want to be treated with like love and compassion and open arms. And I think, yeah.
Wonderful. That was beautiful. And Uni? Did you already go? I can't remember.
No, sorry.
Okay.
I'll go. Yeah. Yeah, I think my advice would be, you're already doing enough. I see some of you have already joined this conference. We kind of talked about imposter syndrome. We tend to either compare ourselves to our peers or other people around you, but just know that you're doing enough. You're already being involved and active. You're an advocate for yourself and others. So just take some time for like self-care and focus on yourself too. And I'll end it and pass it to Kayla.
Oh, I thought you went, but go ahead.
I went last on like the last question. So I think
That's
why.
why. Okay.
And I probably talked too long. Who knows?
No, not at all. Everybody's wonderful.
I will say this. I will second what Uni said on the self-care. That's something I need to work on. So make sure that you do always remember that. But especially if you're headed, next year into your graduation, or maybe, you're going to be in your first year of teaching in the next couple of years, or whatever that looks like for you. A couple things from my year is just take all the advice anybody gives you, and it's just constructive feedback, and build good relationships with your coworkers. And kind of what Breanna said as well is there's been times where I have apologized to my students, whether that's because I overthought something or wrote the wrong thing down or whatever. So it's okay to say sorry to kids. They'll actually appreciate it. And I think if you're in your classroom and you're laughing, it's a good sign things are going well, and we laugh a lot. So that's my advice.
Wonderful advice from all angles. And Uni, it sounds like you are on the path to being an amazing counselor from hearing some of the things you're saying. So great. Not to just call Uni out, but just it really fits. It's making a lot of sense right now. So we have about a good 10 minutes for Q&A. Rolando, you're here. I don't know if you want us to revisit your question about the communication and trying to build bridges in the community college experience. I don't know if anybody wants to revisit Rolando's question, but if anybody wants to unmute, ask questions, put them in the chat, I can read them. Please do so now.
I just have like something that I'm proud of, like knowing Kayla and how she's talking about her and knowing her personally. I'm excited to be that person one day. So yeah.
I love that.
Thank you, Lupe. Oh.
That was lovely. Anybody else have a comment about that? Anybody else want to ask a question or share a thought? I know it's late.
Did Rolando leave? Did he get his question answered?
That's what I was wondering. I asked him that. I haven't heard. He's quiet right now. So he's still here. So Rolando, we're not trying to put you on the spot, but if you need more in-depth commentary on your question, because I do think that you mentioned, a few of you mentioned that. Anything else people have? Oh,
This is Rolando.
go ahead, Rolando.
Yeah,
Did
you know
you?
what? I just kind of wanted to ask what the presenters, what their experiences were as far as the community college level, in which they have answered in part. But one thing, I know people see community college as a small step, but From what I've learned, there's a lot of potential. There's definitely a lot of support. The one thing that I've seen is that there's a lack of retention for a lot of these professors and staff, because a lot of these people are part-time, and the great support that they bring usually ends up at like Long Beach or some other university because they're great. But as far as like as a student, my actual question was, what can I do as a student to um, find a way to push, not in a negative way, but find a way to push to maybe get these trustees to retain a lot of these people, because like yourselves, you've all gone through different experiences, but someone took the opportunity to say, this person matters, we need to keep them. And I just kind of I want to know if the presenters as students and as educators, if they've encountered that and what they did to encourage far more support for the people that are there for us.
I can jump in on this question. Yeah, so right now, since I currently work at the community college and also being a former student, what I've seen other students do is join their student government. So depending on the community college you're attending, that would be ASO or Associated Student Organizations, or ICC. I believe it's like Interclub Council. So those students specifically have like an advisor or a faculty member overseeing like program management if they're putting up events or club meetings up on campus. Another thing that you can do, you mentioned wanting to talk to the trustees. You can become the student trustee at the community college you're attending. I believe each community college, regardless of the district, actually no, LACCD, for example, they have one student trustee, but if you're a community college with a single district, I believe student trustee is something that's up for every year. Besides that, since I mentioned I work at the community college, I think our unions right now are a big advocate for faculty. So one of them being is the FACC. I can't remember the exact acronym, but that union or membership is for faculty that are part-time, because yes, like you mentioned, that is an issue. Even for us as counselors, we're considered as faculty, even though we're counselors. But there's some things that I'm currently learning in this position that there's a lot of adjunct, so part-timers, so adjunct either in faculty or counseling. And because of that, sometimes we don't have specific hours or a guaranteed hourly contract. So through like our unions and membership, they're kind of been the bigger ones to say like, you know, like we make a huge impact with students. Why aren't we like, you know, pushing that like to retain our faculty to make sure there's not huge overturn? Because in the counseling world, I've seen counselors who are adjuncting for like maybe 8 hours at one community college, and then they have to work at a different community college, you know, to make ends meet. And unfortunately, they're not getting enough hours at a community college that they end up moving to like maybe a four-year university to counsel, because there is a guaranteed or guaranteed hours or a lot more hours available. But yeah, so that's what I can share from what I know at the moment.
Thank you, Uni. Those are all great pieces of advice. And a piece of advice from Leah Martinez, our fearless leader. She said, Rolando, that's a great question. And she's working on, Leah's working on institutionalizing the teacher preparation program at Rio Hondo. And she needs student support to make it happen. So there's the avenue right there. As somebody who has full-time position with CCE, but I was asked to do work in the special education arena to help a couple of students with a private university as an adjunct instructor. You know, adjunct faculty there's a lot of movement, and so it is just sort of the nature of the beast. But in that sense, if somebody said to me, we need you to support some students at the community college in that same arena as adjunct faculty, I would grab that position. I would take it in a heartbeat. The students are amazing to work with. The school really works hard to make sure that all students succeed. So I think just Rolando, continue to get active based on Uni's recommendations. Any other comments from the panel? And or any last questions? We have a few more minutes for some last questions and commentary. right, well, I'm not gonna push you all to stay any longer than you're needing to or ready to go grab some dinner. So I am going to put a link in the chat and please tell us what you thought about this session. And I'm also going to put the QR code up on the screen. For me, it looks a little blurry, but hopefully it will also work if you want to use your camera to fill out the reflection. And as part of that reflection, you also will be entered into our daily drawing. So our opportunity drawing. So while we're wrapping that up, I want to just thank, just really authentically and wholeheartedly thank Breanna and Jonathan and Kayla and Uni for a great presentation. You made my job so easy, and I would do this with you all again in a heartbeat. And I'm so like, my heart is so full to hear about how successful you all are, and so lucky. The students are so lucky to have you. So thank you so much. Looks like Rolando and Leia need to connect. Leia, do you want to tell them where your office is?
Yes, I'm located at Career Workforce Education. I don't know if you know that, Rolando. I know I've talked to you once, probably trying to recruit you for the Grow Your Own Teacher Pathway program. But yeah, I'm gonna send you my email so you can connect with me.
And here's the survey one more time, because I'm going to stop sharing screens because I want to see your names and the faces of the beautiful panel. And thank you all so much for a 5 o'clock session. You all really definitely showed up. So it was a pleasure. Oh, he's running for Whittier mayor. Go for it. Wow, that's what we need. Get active. Yeah. You know. Anyway, if there's no more questions and no more commentary, I can end the session. My panel members, if you want to reach out to me after, feel free to do so. And as Leia said, we will let you know about the YouTube channel forthcoming. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Leia. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow, everybody.
Yes, that's right. Tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Thank you. Take care.
That was amazing.
You liked it?
Yeah, did we turn off the recording? Oops.
Does it turn off itself? I'll
I think
pause
it's
it.